All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for being patient with us. We're about to start our program. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Tonight, we're holding our final of 4 public workshops for Wakefield's master planning process. Our agenda for tonight will only cover the 7th and 8th topics of the master plan's 8 planning elements. After some brief introductions, we'll cover the purpose and process, the meeting objective and format, and also some brief demographics. Then we'll discuss tonight's first topic, which is public facilities, services, and infrastructure, to discuss how to enhance and leverage them. Tonight's second topic will be community and economic development, where we're going to explore how Wakefield can put the pieces together from some key issues and ideas from some of the other master planning topics. Once tonight's meeting is concluded, we'll strongly suggest everyone please take the online community survey on these 2 topics so we can get your feedback and measure and discern consensus ideas. With that opening, Erin Kinda's going to do some opening remarks for us, I believe.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. When I think we were planning this meeting and working with our advisory group, we weren't sure what the weather was going to look like come February 1. So at least we don't have snow, but I hope everyone's preparing themselves for this Arctic blast that we're getting. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, and then all that have come over the last 3 public meetings that we've had as well. They've been super enjoyable for me personally. I hope, between having them in person and in Zoom, you've met some new folks. And I thank you for attending tonight. So I'm Erin Kokinda, the Community Economic Development Director from the town. I'm joined by Jen McDonald, our Communications Director from the town of Wakefield, who has been a huge player in helping me with this master plan process from the town. I don't believe Steve is able to join us tonight, but Steve has also been very helpful in kind of guiding us through this process. I want to thank MAPC. I think this year was 2 years of us officially working together between Vision 2030 and now with our master plan. So we've really built a wonderful working relationship. So I want to thank Carlo Montañez, Najee Nunnally. We started working together 8 months ago, and he's transitioned really well into our group. We're joined by Courtney Lewis tonight as well. And I know that we're joined by Town Councilor, Vice Chair Jonathan Shines, and we're also joined by Councilor Ann Danahy, who's also on our advisory group. And so I want to thank them for joining us tonight, and I apologize if I missed any of our counselors that might be here and I just didn't see your name, but thank you so much for coming. And then also I'd like to thank and call out our planning board chair, Theo Noel, who's also here this evening too, and who's on our advisory group. And also, since this is our last real public meeting, I want to put it out there, and I know a number of you are on this call. I want to thank our advisory group. You guys have been really wonderful, one, to get to know personally, and 2, super helpful throughout this whole process. I think, had a lot of great laughs at our last advisory group meeting, finalizing the survey. And I think it was a good group of people that have lived here over 20 years, and people that just moved here in the last year or 2. So I just want to thank you so much for taking time out of everyone's busy schedule to help us with this process. And unfortunately, your job's not done yet, but you're really playing a huge role moving this plan forward. So that's what I have. I'm going to pass it back to Carlos. I talked a little longer than I was expecting.
Thank you, Erin, for those opening remarks. And welcome everyone again. I'm Carlos Montanez, Principal Planner at MAPC, and I'm helping the town as the project manager leading the master plan process for Wakefield. The town's contracted with us to help facilitate this community process and perform the analyses, and we're looking forward to getting your community input so that we can blend that together with our recommended best planning practices. As Erin mentioned, I'm joined tonight by other members from our MAPC consultant team. Courtney Lewis is a senior planner from our land use department, and they'll be presenting on our first topic tonight. Also joining us is our community engagement specialist, Najee Nunnally. And on our intro side, as Erin mentioned, we just want to thank and acknowledge all of the advisory group members and our liaisons and all of the hard work that they put into during the working sessions, as well as helping us draft the survey questions. One second. So with that, MAPC is a regional planning agency for Greater Boston, and we function as a public consultancy, and we strive to help communities supplement their local planning capacity, perform analyses, also do brainstorming sessions, and try to find common solutions to issues that oftentimes can cross municipal boundaries. We're also a mission-based agency, and on the slide are a few excerpts from our mission statement. We promote smart growth, regional collaboration, and equity and diversity as part of our addressing community concerns that can affect people from a variety of backgrounds all across many communities in Greater Boston. Wakefield's master planning process isn't starting from scratch, and the town recently invested in that visioning process, so we can benefit from some of the insights from the vision statement and some of the priority goals to jumpstart our discussions. That process was high level as well, and it provided a lot of context for us to be able to be a little bit more comprehensive about these 8 planning topics. Ideally, the master plan, the final report, will be consulted during the next 10 years at municipal meetings in order to help guide more immediate decisions on project proposals and decisions on investments. The master plan will attempt to make connections between topics and highlight trade-offs as well. Using your community input from the surveys, we're hoping to be able to identify and prioritize goals and devise corresponding recommendations. We also want to remind everyone the master planning process is at a macro level, and it doesn't get into site or project specific details, nor any actual detailed zoning language changes at this point. On a more general level, master plans can help communities provide their residents and their businesses with mutual certainty as to what they could potentially expect in terms of physical improvements, public facilities and services, and changes in specific areas in town for growth, preservation, and enhancement. In addition to being grounded in data, it can also be aspirational, similar to the visioning. And we're going to analyze and reference data to help with the recommendations, but we're also seeking your community input so we can help shape where Wakefield would like to go by the year 2033. The plan report may ultimately have a lengthy list of goals and recommendations, and we'll try to prioritize them in a certain sequence to make it useful for Wakefield to gradually accomplish its own goals during the next 10 years. Hopefully, there'll be a few compelling ideas that also have some common shared ground in the town that Wakefield residents can also rally around to keep those ideas alive at future town meetings. This slide on the screen shows the general process timeline with 4 public forums interspersed with advisory group working sessions. Thus far, we've had 5 working sessions with the AG, and also we've had volunteers from the AG work on drafting survey questions that have been paired with tonight's virtual community workshop. That survey on those 2 topics will be active for 6 weeks, starting February 6th until March 20th for any and all Wakefield community members to take. Our AG members will be helping to facilitate some of tonight's small breakout group discussions, and we've worked with the advisory group and the survey subcommittee volunteers to draft purposeful survey questions that break down larger topics into subtopic questions that can provide useful insight and hopefully help us with devising master plan goals and actionable recommendations. This slide shows how the 8 planning topics have been sequenced over the course of 4 public forums. Each of the 4 workshops has been 2 hours long and featured 2 distinct topics at each workshop. For any community members who weren't able to attend the workshop, we also have provided online surveys for several weeks after the forums on these specific topics so that residents have an opportunity to record their individual input and also the option of viewing the presentation slides or the recording of the meeting on the town website. Our meeting objective for tonight is to present a few minutes of informational slides on a topic before we all break out into smaller groups for a facilitated discussion so that participating community members can hear each other's ideas before we ask everyone to take the poll after the meeting during that 6-week period and dedicate approximately 15 minutes of personal time to providing us with your individual input. As we did with the visioning, we'll emphasize to all members to take the survey since the input from it will be the primary form of standardized feedback that will allow us to measure community input and also determine some level of consensus on a variety of planning subtopics, questions, and ideas. This slide highlights in yellow the survey link that will be active starting February 6th for 6 weeks until March 20th. And I believe on all the slides, it's also located on the bottom throughout the presentation as well. Now we'll briefly cover some context demographics before starting our first topic of the night. This map highlights Wakefield's business districts, neighborhoods, and open spaces with the downtown in the center between its two lakes. The areas in red are the retail business areas. The areas in purple are zoned for industrial and commercial uses, and the areas in green show the open spaces. The 2 commuter rail locations are also identified with the T icon. Wakefield's an established suburban town 10 miles north of Boston. Given that it's a mature community approaching build-out, new opportunities for community and economic growth are likely to occur via flexible and creative redevelopment strategies of underutilized infill opportunity properties. The town's population has remained relatively stable with the modest 8 to 11% growth since 1960. Of the few Census 2020 data sets that have been released, we have that Wakefield's population has increased by 8% from 2010. Compared to the county and the region, Wakefield is 16 to 22% less diverse racially. When compared to Middlesex County, Wakefield's median overall housing sales price of approximately $645,000 is 8% more affordable. When compared to Essex County, the median housing sales price is 15% more expensive. And looking at its tax base, Wakefield revenue sources overwhelmingly come from residential properties at 80%, and 13% from commercial properties, and 2% from industrial. Lastly, regarding transportation, Wakefield has longer work commute times compared to the county, state, and national averages. In terms of how residents commute, 73% drive alone, while 16% take public transit, carpool, or walk. And lastly, when it comes to different options for getting around, we should consider the mobility needs and challenges of some residents. About 8% of residents have limited mobility and difficulty with living independently. Now we'll move on to our 2 main workshop topics with information topic slides before each discussion and then afterwards that survey. Our first master plan topic tonight is public services and infrastructure, which our senior planner, Courtney Lewis, will present.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to join you all this evening. My name is Courtney Lewis. As Carlos mentioned, I'm a senior planner in the land use department, and I'll be discussing the town's public facilities and infrastructure and municipal services. These things are important to quality of life, and they also provide a critical foundation for the town's physical, social, cultural, and economic landscape. This element of the comprehensive plan will identify the buildings, facilities, infrastructure, and human resources the town will need to support the needs of the community, and also meet current and to meet current and future growth and demand. The goal of this chapter is to provide an inventory of Wakefield's existing public facilities and services, identify any deficiencies or gaps in those facilities or services, and then develop strategies and actions to address those deficiencies. Throughout the process, the goal is to ensure that any strategies or actions support the town's local and regional planning goals, and then take those actions and prioritize the resources and the capital investments in a way that's equitable and efficient, and as well as sustainable over time. Next slide. So, as I mentioned, it's important that the town have adequate and well-designed facilities that help create a vibrant public realm and also support the day-to-day operations that keep the town running efficiently. A public facility is any town property that has been developed for a particular public use or purpose, and it includes public infrastructure, utilities, and other non-building facilities like parks, playgrounds, and cemeteries. Community services include municipal services like fire and police, emergency services, as well as health and human services that are provided through the health department, housing assistant, through the housing authority, and recreation services that are offered through the recreation department. These are services that can be augmented through partner organizations or nonprofits, and they can also be contracted out to private companies. Sometimes, but not always, these two things overlap, and a public facility also serves as the base of operations for a town department, or houses town employees, or provides space for a community activities or services. Next slide. So this process builds on the Wakefield 2030 visioning, and you can see highlighted on the screen portions of the vision statement that align with this particular element. There were things like ensuring that residents have safe walking and biking amenities, having access to transportation, and being able to leverage commuter rail access. I've also taken time to review and gather information from several plans and reports the town has completed over the past few years, things like the annual report, the bicycle and pedestrian plan, the local rapid recovery plan, the age-friendly action plan, and the municipal vulnerability preparedness report. Any goals or recommendations developed for this chapter will take into consideration and align with goals and recommendations found in these documents. So the town of Wakefield currently owns and manages approximately 38 facilities, 8 school facilities. It manages 115 miles of roadway, 95 miles of sewer main, 160 615 acres of parks and open space, and 67 miles of sidewalk. The town is divided into 37 different departments and employs over 1,200 full-time and part-time employees. The map to the right shows the location of some of these facilities, including Town Hall, the library, fire and police stations, school locations, and the town's parks and open spaces, which are in green. Town-owned parcels are highlighted in various colors based on ownership, and that information was gathered from the assessor's data. One thing to keep in mind as we break off into the small group discussions is the distribution of these facilities throughout the town. Looking at this is important for things like emergency services, where it's important to have good response time for fire and police. It's also good to think about children having access to parks and open spaces, and ensuring that infrastructure is in place for them to safely access those places as well. Next slide. So one of the things that I read throughout a lot of the comments, both in reports and previous surveys, was people's was the need for better road and pedestrian infrastructure. So I took a look at information from the pedestrian and biking plan, as well as to try and get a better sense of connectivity throughout the town. And I also looked up. I was curious, so I looked up the town's walk score, and its walk score is a walkability analysis tool that's used pretty frequently in real estate for real estate listings, and it measures the distance of various amenities in residential in their proximity to residential areas, and considers things like the length of the block, the length of the duration of the walk, as well as difficult intersections or areas for crossing. And based on their analysis, the town of Wakefield has a walk score of 49, which means it's pretty car dependent. It has a bike score of 39 out of 100, and a transit score of 27 out of 100. So, so basically, the town has room to grow in terms of creating better connections, and ensuring that the infrastructure needed for safe pedestrian travel is in place. This map is another map that it's a map that was generated using ParkServe, which is a tool created by the Trust for Public Land. And the platform identifies the location of a 10-minute walk service area for parks, playgrounds, and open space areas that offer recreation opportunities to communities. They've gathered this information and analysis for over 14,000 cities, towns, and communities across the US. And based on their analysis, 76% of Wakefield residents live within a 10-minute walk of a park. The national average is 55%. And so looking at the map, the areas highlighted in purple show areas that should be prioritized for park creation. These are the areas that that are outside of that 10-minute walk window. And so this is a useful tool for residents as well as planners in determining areas that may need additional park or park access. And it's also a good tool for residents to use to advocate for park creation in their neighborhood or community. Next slide. As I mentioned before, the town manages approximately 38 facilities. This is a list of those facilities that range from buildings like Town Hall, but also smaller storage areas like the DPW garage and salt shed. These are all considered facilities, and they are, as I mentioned before, dispersed throughout different areas of the town. Next slide. And this also shows some, but not all, of the municipal services offered by the town. And they have been kind of split up into different categories. You have administration and finance, public safety, public works and utilities, community development and planning, health and human services, culture and recreation, and as well as education. So thinking about the town has also has several initiatives and ongoing capital improvement projects. The Wakefield Public Safety Building is currently under renovation. The project was approved at town meeting in 2020. Construction costs are estimated at $2.5 million. And this project will help to address space deficiency for both the police and fire departments, and includes the addition a new 3-story addition, as well as a new main lobby area. The second project is the Wakefield Memorial High School building project. which the town just hosted had town meeting to discuss this particular project. The the town is looking to build a new high school with the assistance of a grant from the state for a cost of $273 million. And this project will go for a final vote sometime next month. And then the next project is also a school-related project for the regional tech school. It too is the town. The town, along with the 12 sending communities, are also hoping to secure a grant from the state in order to construct this facility. And it is currently in the detailed design phase of the module 6 of the grant program's construction process. Next slide. I also wanted to highlight some capital improvements that are taking place in and around downtown. So envision Wakefield, the downtown revitalization project, which focuses on streetscape improvements in and around the downtown to make it safer for pedestrians. There are 3 strategic locations where these improvements have been cited for, and in addition to that project, there is the DPW is also making several improvements. They have a strategic road repair and maintenance plan that's featured on their website. They also provide an interactive dashboard which notes the various phases of some of these improvements. And then last but not least is the Wakefield Linfield Rail Trail, which is a 4.4 mile shared use path that will connect to the town of Linfield. The portion that lies in Wakefield is approximately 1.9 miles, and it is slated for construction in 2026. In addition to those projects, there are also a few upcoming projects that have been funded or that have been earmarked with from ARPA funds that directly relate to town facilities, and those are listed here. At this time, there aren't specific details, but on when these projects will kick off. But there's a restoration project happening for the chapel at Lakeside Cemetery. There will be $75,000 dedicated to tree planting throughout the town. and $70,000 for upgrades to the cultural exchange center. And then from a separate funding source, the Civic Center will receive repairs to the roof. The playground at the Doyle School will receive ADA accessibility upgrades, and there is also funding dedicated to pedestrian improvements in the downtown. So based on my initial assessment of the existing conditions, as well as feedback gathered through comments and the survey and the visioning, I thought that some things that I'd like for everyone to consider as we transition into the breakout discussions is thinking about things like opportunities for upgrading aging infrastructure or existing facilities that have space constraints. One of the challenges that the town, like many other municipalities, often faces is limited funding sources for capital improvements. So looking for creative ways to fund some of the needed improvements. This is also an opportunity for the town to remove physical barriers and increase access to community spaces and amenities like parks, open spaces, and public buildings. So as you saw in the previous slide, some of the playgrounds and public buildings are receiving accessibility upgrades with certain funding. It's also an opportunity to think of better ways of promoting some of the health and support services that the town offers. One thing that I read in my review of the age-friendly communities report was that one of the senior focus groups that was held through that planning process, a number of seniors were surprised to hear about some of the services that were available to them and wanted to be able to take advantage of those services. So looking at ways to better promote those services. Also looking at opportunities to maximize the use and adaptive reuse of town-owned facilities, whether that's an underutilized parcel or park or open space or a physical building or structure. And also in thinking of new buildings or renovating or retrofitting existing buildings, looking for opportunities for joint use facilities. The public safety building is a good example. It is one structure that houses both the fire and police department. So looking at options like that to make collaboration among departments better, but also to conserve land and natural resources by using existing sites. As Carlos mentioned, in his opening, creative redevelopment of sites and infill development. Next slide. And in addition, I talked a little bit about how some of these things get funded. So looking at grant funding opportunities to be able to address certain issues. The state offers has a grant program that supports capital improvements for increasing accessibility and removing barriers for persons with disabilities. The FEMA offers a grant for infrastructure improvements that help with mitigation of natural disasters and hazards. The National Endowment for the Arts offers grants for creative placemaking for public realm improvements. And MAPC also has a accelerating climate resiliency grant program that that funds projects and initiatives that help facilitate long-term solutions to future climate hazards.
So an economic development master plan element or a chapter can make connections between issues and ideas to identify ways that we can be strategic about making key decisions in order to proactively create favorable conditions that can possibly attract businesses and services that the community desires. Generally speaking, the topic of economic development involves trying to broaden the local tax base and economy to improve the overall well-being of people by allowing more choices for businesses and jobs, as well as transportation and housing options. Local communities and their governments can act on things that they control, such as infrastructure investments and zoning. And economic development also promotes policies and interventions that make it easier for people to access resources in order to be self-sufficient and fulfill their own housing, work, and health needs. Economic development has three main components. The first component focuses on job creation and retention, including small business development, as well as training skills. The second component involves accommodating physical growth and the creation of places for people to work and live in with clear business-friendly regulations and physical improvements that can possibly attract private businesses. And the third component focuses more on the intangible quality of life and well-being of community members by allowing and promoting resources to community members so that individuals can satisfy their own needs for work, shopping, education, etc. All right, moving from the purpose of the economic development element, and before we get into existing conditions information, it's worth highlighting from Wakefield's recently completed vision report. Over 1,100 Wakefield participants provided input. On the slide are some topics, some highlights related to this topic, economic development, included in the vision, and touch on participants wanting to see expansion of mixed-use options in the downtown area, pursuing commercial property reinvestment, and allowing more transportation options. Some highlighted priority goals and strategies from that Vision 2030 report include accommodating future jobs, services, and housing options within the downtown area as a priority, as well as expanding learning opportunities in order to invest in the development of the Wakefield community itself. As Wakefield's population continues to gradually grow, should and how could Wakefield physically accommodate community businesses, jobs, and services, particularly within those purple and light red business and industrial areas highlighted on the map? Considering how Wakefield currently uses its land to allow certain types of commercial and business activities, over half of the land is for residential uses only, while commercial and industrial land combined account for 15% to allow for jobs and services. Mixed use accounts for approximately 0.5% of the land. In terms of its tax base, approximately 80% of tax revenue comes from residential property, 14% from commercial, and 2.5% from industrial. These property tax categories are also impacted by the supply of land that the town zones for certain land uses. In terms of overall financial health, Wakefield has the highest available AAA municipal bond rating, which is a very positive indicator. This rating has allowed the town to save approximately $466,000 in interest on loans for municipal capital projects. Moving to another economic indicator, Wakefield's overall employment rate is 3% and is 1 to 2 percentage points lower than the surrounding county and the subregion. Unemployment rates for Wakefield and those areas have declined during the last decade when they were between 7 and 8%. Looking at unemployment claims in 2022 by industry, the two largest were 21% in construction and 12% for professional, technical, and scientific services. In terms of Wakefield's local job economy, another economic indicator known as the employment to population ratio is another way to gauge how efficiently jobs are being supplied to a community. Chart on the left shows ratios by age groups, and anything over 70 is considered high. Excluding those of retirement age, Wakefield is between 68 and 90 for its employment ratio, which is healthy to high. The chart on the right shows how specialized Wakefield is versus the national average when it comes to big bucket job categories of white collar, blue collar, and service jobs. At 76%, Wakefield is more specialized in white collar jobs and is less specialized in both blue collar and service jobs. Moving to educational attainment and occupations of Wakefield residents, compared to the county and the subregion, Wakefield's 62% with college or advanced degrees is comparable to their 63 and 64%. 58% of Wakefield residents are employed in occupations involving management, business, science, or the arts. The next two largest resident occupations are sales and office jobs at 19%, and 10% for service occupations. Now we'll look at the types of businesses in Wakefield so that we can understand which types of businesses could be impacted by town decisions and regulations such as parking, zoning, and permitting. 13% of businesses in Wakefield are professional service businesses, and another 13% are in other services businesses that do not include public administration. The next two highest categories are businesses in retail trade at 10%, and another 10% of businesses in construction. Now we'll shift to workers commuting into Wakefield with data for 2022, so that we can consider the potential for additional customers to support local Wakefield shops and restaurants during their commutes and lunch hours. 15% of non-resident workers are in the professional services. 12% of commuters into town are in healthcare and social assistance. 9% are in finance and insurance, and another 8% in educational services. Another data set for workers in Wakefield, collected with average monthly employment figures for the year 2021, provides additional insight into the job density of different types of employers in Wakefield and their workers. For the top 3 job industry types, which are professional, technical, and scientific jobs, administrative services, and healthcare and social assistance, administrative services has an average of 22 workers per business, which is higher than the average 11 for healthcare and the average 17 for professional scientific ones. Moving on to the most occurring employer types. From the top 100 major employers in Wakefield, which is defined by the state as having 20 or more employees, the most types of major employers in town are 9 school employers, 8 insurance-related employers, 6 in building supplies, and 5 in consulting services. This could be useful to understand the potential impact of town regulations on large employers, as well as their workers who come into town. If we drill down even further and just focus on the largest 21 employers in Wakefield, who the state defined as having 100 or more workers, we continue to see schools and consulting services as well represented. But we can also see that computer systems and a grocery wholesaler employ a large number. There are 2 employers who employ between 250 and 500 workers each, and those are the Produce Connection and Epsilon Data Management. Stepping back from existing conditions and considering opportunities, we'll look at the state's broad regional job industry projections for the year 2030. The state projects an overall 29% job growth of jobs for the workforce development area that includes Wakefield. Of the 84 detailed industries that the state monitors and MAPC examined, the 4 growth industries include professional tech services, food services and drinking places, administrative support, and accommodation and food services. Again, this could be useful when considering the town's competitiveness in terms of attracting future jobs and services. Now we'll look at existing local consumer preferences using a different subscription data set used by retailers and real estate developers nationally. We can see consumer household profiles that prospective businesses could use to help decide whether to open a business in any given location. The largest three household profiles comprise 82% of the consumer market. This data is partially compiled from data tracked from credit cards and associated when we all make purchases. Among some of the highlights are that there are many multi-worker households, and some of them have 3 or more vehicles per household, with some specific consumer profiles, such as the 23% of city lights using public transportation for work commutes. Seniors and empty nesters are also represented in the 26% that comprise the suburbanites consumer profile. These slides will live on the town webpage for anyone who would like to look at them further before taking the survey. The remaining 3 household consumer profiles total 19% and include highlights such as there are many carless households in the trendsetters profile who also take public transportation, walk, and bike. Additional highlights include the independent active seniors in the years profile who also like to support the arts and charitable organizations. In terms of challenges and opportunities, which oftentimes can be 2 sides of the same coin, for your consideration on the slide are a few interrelated issues the town could consider for deciding whether and how to promote economic growth and benefits. In a mixed economy, public regulations can potentially create attractive conditions. Zoning flexibility and also the expansion of transportation options can potentially also impact whether the town can attract new business investment to bring jobs and shoppers, as well as impact housing options for existing residents and potential workers considering relocation. For your consideration on the slide, should Wakefield grow and connect its business activity districts? Among the things that can affect whether a community can create favorable conditions now are the following: attractive walkable street amenities in order to attract shoppers and workers. Also, being proactive in terms of innovative transportation solutions to give options for getting around town. Thus far, from the first 3 master plan surveys, Wakefield participants have given us a few insights into challenges and opportunities. And on the slide are some highlights. 35% said that housing affordability was a large issue, and another 30% said it was somewhat of an issue. 42% ranked expanding pedestrian-friendly the pedestrian-friendly Complete Streets program as a priority. 60 to 67% stated that public transit options were an issue for commuters and those with limited mobility. And a final highlight, 79% stated that the town overall needs amenities as well as physical improvements. What about thinking about housing, not solely as shelter, but also as having an economic development impact? Since the supply of housing and its affordability can also affect businesses and their workers. A national 2022 study done by a nonprofit housing coalition found that the average fair market rent in Massachusetts was almost 50% higher than the national average. Both the coalition's report as well as the UMass Donahue Institute are quoted in a WGBH article in terms of the cost, saying that the cost of housing is hurting the economic competitiveness of Massachusetts as well as its communities. A potential opportunity for treating housing as a beneficial economic driver could be something like considering design guidelines for development review of residential proposals and commercial proposals for that matter. 49% of Wakefield participants who took the second master plan survey indicated that they wanted such design guidelines for review of projects. On the slide are additional considerations for being able to attract retail businesses and their shoppers with attractive walkable streetscapes. Beyond streetscape amenities and mobility options such as circulating microtransit shuttle vans, what about wayfinding directory signage for business districts to welcome and orient shoppers and visitors with parking and shopping information? If the town desires fewer vacant storefronts, then one could consider a well-known national real estate developer's mantra that says, retail follows rooftops, it does not lead. Businesses follow where there are enough local residents to support more shops, as well as local workers spending money during lunch hours and outside visitors and shoppers who like to go to shop where there are pedestrian-friendly improvements in place to encourage leisurely shopping. Shifting to workforce development and continued education and learning, what about supporting and advocating for beneficial workforce training? The Northeast Metro Tech Regional High School offers a series of affordable educational options and supportive career opportunities for both youth and working adults alike. They are currently seeking major federal ARPA funding support for a major renovation. Wrapping up this topic with just a few more slides with resource ideas. The town has been actively seeking federal ARPA funding to help advance many community and economic development needs. The town received $8 million in ARPA funds, and the town council and the town administrator have held some public discussions in order to help decide what to do with it. Some initial expenditures have gone to things such as school and first responder overtime, test kits, clinics, and town meeting. Fiscal year budgeting for the years 2022 to 2024 have focused on town hall, schools, police, and the health budget. The town has gathered many recommendations listed on the slide. Some include, but are not limited to, Lake Quannapowitt cleanup, an energy assistance fund, and the rail trail. In addition to those, this slide shows some state ARPA earmarks by the state for facilities and improvements in Wakefield, such as the Civic Center roof repairs and the Albion Cultural Exchange ADA upgrades. The last two slides highlight a variety of potential resources for funding projects, as well as useful recent economic development studies, including the Community One Stop for Growth grants, which focuses on complete from visioning to final construction projects, and the Local Rapid Recovery Program, which focuses more on downtown revitalization. Lastly, 3 recent studies for promoting downtown revitalization include a 2021 South Main Street analysis done by the Urban Land Institute, a 2021 Town Local Rapid Recovery Plan, and a business district assessment from 2016. And I pardon the the visuals of the slide that I had an issue with this particular one, but I'll correct it for the website. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. And with that, we conclude our public forum, and we want to encourage everyone to take the survey, which becomes active on February 6th. And will be an opportunity for anyone to take the survey during those 6 weeks until March 20th. So I want to thank everyone for taking their time to have some good discussions. And if you can please also take the survey link and share it with friends, neighbors, family, et cetera, that'd be greatly appreciated.